Americans suffer from disaster fatigue. The huge numbers are almost too large to understand or fathom, so many stop trying. As more and more bodies pile up in disaster after global disaster, even the most sympathetic souls or people can turn away. Charities know this as donor fatigue, but it might be more accurately described as disaster fatigue. The sense that these events are never-ending, uncontrollable, and now overwhelming. This must be some kind of new term called disaster fatigue. And it means something too. It means that the disasters are increasing. They're on the rise. More than ever. Researchers and experts say it is one reason Americans have contributed relatively little so far to victims of the Myanmar-Cyclone and China's earthquake disaster. And ironically, the more bad news there is, it seems the less likely people may be to give. Seeing or hearing about too many disasters makes some people not want to give at all, when they would have if it had been just one disaster. Compared with disasters like the Asian tsunami and Hurricane Katrina, those in China and Myanmar have generated just a trickle of aid. As of Friday, Americans have given approximately $12.1 million to charities for the Myanmar disaster. There may be a number of factors to blame. A number of factors may be at play in the slow American response, including a lack of sympathy for the repressive governments involved, doubts about whether aid will get through, and now an inclination to save money because of shaky economic times at home, the U.S. recession, which keeps getting worse. And these are all connected. Everything happens for a reason. But Americans may have also been influenced by the quick, rapid succession of monumental catastrophes in two distant lands. At least 130,000 people are dead or missing in the Myanmar-Cyclone, and the death toll in China's earthquake could easily surpass 80,000 or more. For the vast number of Americans, if they just gave to some disaster far away and then another disaster happens, in their mind that's clumped as another faraway disaster. This problem came up after the 2004 Asian tsunami, an event that brought an avalanche of $1.92 billion in charity from the United States, according to the Giving USA Foundation. Hurricane Katrina, 8 months later, generated even more, at least $5.3 billion. But then, disaster fatigue seemed to set in. The earthquake in Pakistan that killed nearly 80,000 people generated just $150 million from Americans. And the Guatemala mudslide shortly thereafter was virtually forgotten. If one disaster can be galvanizing, several or many in a row can be very paralyzing. It's just too much pain, too much tragedy for someone to process. And so people tend to pull themselves away from it and either close off from it out of psychological defense, or it just plain overwhelms us, said Cynthia Edwards, a professor of psychology at Meredith College in Raleigh, North Carolina. A rising string of tragedies or disasters can also make potential donors feel nervous about their own safety, theoretically making them less likely to give. That could be especially troubling now for Americans, many of whom are worried about their jobs and rising food and gas prices. Yes, the economy has something to do with it, but also disaster fatigue is real. This also means that the rate of disasters and the scope and magnitude of them are increasing. This is a sign or an omen, whatever you want to call it. It's too soon to judge the effects of the economic downturn on giving, says Dale Martin, chair of the Giving USA Foundation. Although early figures show that donations rose in 2007. In general, people tend to give to causes closer to home. In 2006, Americans gave more than $295 billion to charity, but less than 4% of that went overseas. A spokeswoman for CARE USA is glad that Americans are giving to Myanmar or Burma at all, considering the lack of images from the disaster. There's always concern that the tragedy is going to be forgotten. CARE USA, World Vision, and other aid groups all say giving for Myanmar is on pace to match the amount given after the Pakistan earthquake, although the Myanmar death toll appears to be far bigger. Yes, these are more signs. It's called disaster fatigue, or donor fatigue. So many disasters, one after another. Huge disasters on a colossal scale. Unimaginable disasters. And they are increasing. The pace of the disasters is speeding up. Why? Well, just look at the weather. Just look at the world's economy, or the world food crisis, or the price of gasoline or oil. Yeah, all this is connected to what's going on. The whole world is setting up in anticipation. Yes, God, Jesus Christ, the angels, the beings of light, they are coming back very soon. And these are more end times, transition signs. In other words, it's becoming an end of an era and the beginning of a new era. There's a new world coming. And these are more signs. And there are many.